As millions of dollars are sucked out of Oranga Tamariki's community service providers, the Minister for Children is claiming a win. No more, Chhour says, will the agency be, quote, the cash cow for providers who are underperforming. Oranga Tamariki itself yesterday joining the pile-on, claiming any suggestion its cuts will harm children amounts to scaremongering. Belinda, Himiona, for one, is scared. As Chief Executive of Social Service Providers Pai Ora, which represents 75% of those affected.
We have providers who have been given no rationale for either reductions or discontinuation of services. So if that is the case, it would have been really good to have had that conversation with those providers in advance and to have talked to them respectfully about what was needed to improve the situation. I've had people ringing me in tears today, just, over the last week, very, very distressed and worried about the impact on children and families. Some Oranga Tamariki staff who've had to give the messages to these providers have also been in tears. They are so confused about the direction. We have got absolute evidence of frontline services being reduced and removed. We've not seen a drop in demand for those services. And if anything, providers are talking about more complex cases coming to them. So providers that are losing their money or part of their money are not those who are not doing the work. They are absolutely in their boots and all in communities. And it's just really disheartening, to be honest, to hear that from leadership.
Well, Minister for Children, Chhour, joins us now. Morena, Minister, thank you so much for being with us here on Breakfast this morning. Does it concern you that some of these providers haven't been given reasons for funding cuts, and there seems to be a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety within the sector?
So they've finalised all the decisions, I think, yesterday or the day before with around contracts. They take a lot of things into consideration with contracts. One is underutilisation of spend. The other one is around duplication. Sometimes services are duplicated, and we can consolidate that into one service. And then there's other areas where OT needs to get back to their core services, which is actually the children in their care, and actually making sure they are looking after the safety and well-being of those in their care. Oranga Tamariki for far too long has been trying to do way too much. We need to get better at the core services of Oranga Tamariki, and that's what I've asked them to focus on.
Minister, I just want to go back to the point of the question, which was around some of these providers haven't had any communication about the issues that you have just raised about those services. They haven't been told why their funding has been cut. Is that an issue for you? I've
been told that from Oranga Tamariki that all these organisations have been communicated with through this whole process from the beginning of this year. If providers do feel that, I suggest that they go have a conversation with Oranga Tamariki. Some have been asked to reimburse money that has been paid to them, and they haven't done the services that they were paid for. Those organisations have been spoken to. We cannot have organisations being paid for services that aren't delivered. That money will be asked. We will be asking for that money back.
I don't think anybody's arguing that. But what my question is, Minister, is around the communication from Oranga Tamariki to these providers who, as you heard, Belinda Himiona, CE for Social Service Providers Aotearoa, many of them in tears because there have been no communication about the why, whether that is about people accessing their services, whether it's about underperforming. There has been no communication with them.
Well, I've been advised that Oranga Tamariki has been negotiating in good faith with these organisations, and if these organisations feel that that has not happened, then I would encourage them to reach out to Oranga Tamariki. I don't have all those communications in front of me. That's all operational. But if that has happened, I would expect Oranga Tamariki to have a conversation with those organisations.
Will you direct Oranga Tamariki to have those conversations to elaborate on the decision-making process with those providers?
If those conversations have not happened, I would expect Oranga Tamariki to be having those conversations.
Well, a number of providers we've spoken to have said they haven't had those conversations. We've also heard from Family Start, Nelson, who say still had no communication from Oranga Tamariki despite reaching out to them again today. I just want to go to the release that you put out yesterday, Minister, and I want to quote from here. For too many years, Oranga Tamariki has been the cash cow for community service providers who say they will provide services and they don't. Cash cow. PSA says that is insulting. Do you regret using that language?
When you've got millions of dollars sitting in bank accounts where it hasn't been spent, and organisations have been allowed to build up massive reserves and not give that money back, that is treating Oranga Tamariki like a cash cow.
Yes,
and
but
I'm
there
not
are
going to allow
providers.
that to happen anymore.
There are providers
there are
who
some
are
organisations. Yes,
there are those
organisations
who are providing services to families, therefore to tamariki, and many of them are putting that money to good use. Cash cow that's pretty tough words that you've used.
Because far too long we've had the attitude from Oranga Tamariki itself too, not governing the money as well as they should. We need to make sure that every dollar is going towards the best interests of young people in the care and protection of Oranga Tamariki, and make sure we have the right services in the right places. This is a reset, and I understand this will be upsetting for some organisations who may not have done anything wrong, but there might be a duplication of service. There might not be a necessary in their region for that particular service, and there will be services where that has happened. But there has also been
it's a sweeping
an awful lot of money
that you've made.
chucked
it's a sweeping
around
statement that you've made.
That is not coming back and being spent on our kids.
Okay, I want to move on because there's so much for us to cover. You also say in the statement there has been no reduction in frontline services. Again, I have a statement from Family Start, Nelson, who say if our current level of funding is reduced, frontline redundancies will happen. So these cuts, they are impacting the frontline, and there are many providers telling us that it is impacting.
Some providers will be reducing their staff because they will have a reduction in their funding based on the information that they sent from their previous year's services, and then other organisations who have been over-delivering will get an increase in funding, and they will be able to expand what they're doing on the front line. So no money has actually been taken away from Oranga Tamariki services. It's just been redistributed to where it's needed the most.
Minister, I want to move on to Section 7AA of the Oranga Tamariki Act. We know that submissions are currently being heard on your decision to repeal that section. Now, this mandates for Oranga Tamariki to recognise and provide the cultural needs of Māori children in care. It is designed to address systemic disparities and also historic injustices. What specific evidence did you consider when you decided to repeal 7AA?
There was a few bits of evidence before I came into Parliament that I saw personally within my community around uplifts that were happening based on the caregiver's race, not based on safety or well-being, but based on the caregiver's race. There was also a couple of court cases, one done by Newsroom, and I'm not sure who did the other one within the news, reaching out about these uplifts based on race.
So two court cases and anecdotal instances.
And then discussions
that's your evidence.
And then seeing personal cases within my community before even becoming an MP around decisions being made based on race. But what I would like to say to you is my main goal coming in as Children's Minister is making sure that the safety and best interest is the first decision, the first thing we do when we make a decision around young people.
It does not take away.
That, right? It does not take away the ability for people to have connection with their whakapapa, with their iwi and their hapu. Those protections are already in the Act.
One final question, Minister, because I know we've taken up a lot of time, but again, I go back to 7AA. It was designed to address systemic disparities and historic injustices. We know that in the past decade, tamariki Māori accounted for more than half of all children entering care. If we have a look at Ngāpuhi, 827 of their children are in state care. That's over a third of the kids currently in care. So if we go back to why 7AA was designed to address those systemic disparities, how will you do that? If you're going to remove 7AA.
When we talk about young people in care, I just want to clarify that as well, because statistically, 70% of young people in care, in the care and custody of Aoranga Tamariki, are still within whānau placement. So with those 800, and I can't remember the exact figure, but around 800 young people from Ngāpuhi, a lot of them will be within whānau care, but just still under the direction of Oranga Tamariki. This will be able to continue, but what I want to make sure of is that when we're making that decision, safety and wellbeing is first.
Yes or no, will you look at other sections of the Oranga Tamariki Act?
For what purpose, sorry?
Same thing. When we're looking at whakapapa, when we're looking at whānau and the best interests of the child and the connection that they have, will you be looking at any other section within the Act?
There's already sections within the Act, 4, 5 and 15, that protect family rights, whānau rights, hapu rights. This is about making sure that we are not putting one piece of legislation ahead of all the rest.
Minister for Children, Chhour, joining us this morning. Tēnā koe.
Just coming up 20 minutes past 7 o'clock this Thursday morning, e haere ake nei, we'll have all the latest from Paris. Stay with us.